Awesome. TikTok, it's time to rock. Good to see you guys here. The 5150s are back for our fortnightly show. We've got a couple of great guests on, and Hoss is going to keep us in the loop with what's going on there. But as usual, I would like to introduce to you on the top tier with us this evening, all the way from Melbourne, Brad, also known as the Backdoor Man.
Thanks, Andrew.
I didn't know that. I don't even want to ask.
He's going to tell you. He's going to tell you the reason why he has that name, because it follows the line of great blues stories. Okay. On the bottom there, we have all the way from another part of Australia, probably just around the corner from Brad, all the way from Melbourne. Hoss, good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too, Andrew and Brad and everyone. Yeah, awesome.
Good to see you guys. Good to catch up. It's been great.
So I'm just having a look here to see who's in the chat. In our green room, guys, we organised a couple of things, but we didn't decide who's going to do the shout-outs. So I'm going to get Brad, if you can do the shout-outs, if you've got your computer up, if you can do that. Yep. Hoss, I'll get you to do that at the end of the show, brother, if you can do that for us. That'll be really, really cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to hearing what you guys have up your sleeves, because I understand you guys can gig soon. So the corner bar gig sounds like it's a goer. So Hoss, do you want to tell us a little bit about that and some of the plans that you guys have got going?
Yeah, absolutely. So sadly, just because of the way things have been in the world at the moment, we've had to reschedule our tribute to Eddie Van Halen show a 5th time. But there's good news to do with that. It is now been rescheduled to Tuesday, the 25th of January, and it just so happens to be the eve of Eddie's birthday. So,
wow.
Yeah, and because Australians are awesome, there is a national Australian holiday every year on Ed's birthday. It's called Australia Day, but I just think it was because they were embarrassed to call it Eddie Van Halen's birthday holiday, you know? But yeah. So anyway, so on the eve of a national public holiday, which is Eddie's birthday, we're doing the show. That's the new date. That's the date that rain, hail, or shine, or COVID, or whatever. I mean, if there's another COVID lockdown in Melbourne and I have to sit there with an acoustic guitar and do the show, then that's what's going to happen, because we're going to make it a Eddie Van Halen birthday celebration.
That's it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Wow.
It's going to be heaps of fun. Now, obviously, it's not his birthday until midnight, stroke of midnight. And so there's some fun things planned, which I'm sure people can kind of imagine, not the least of which might be a huge red, white, and black striped birthday cake to come out onto the stage, and with 5,150 candles on it. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Look, whatever you guys do. Whatever you guys do, I look forward to you going live from there at some stage. It would be brilliant. I know that we've been talking about it for a while, so we look forward to hanging out with you guys and seeing how it operates behind the scene. A bit of a gear rig rundown. So we look forward to that. But before we get into the meat and bones for the show, we got a couple of shout outs to do. I think we'll start with Hoss. If you can do our first shout out, brother.
Okay. Hey, I see we got Fruitcake Tony in the chat there. Hey there, Fruitcake. Keith Campbell, Christine Taylor. We've got, of course, the incredible John ZD351. Actually, John, I don't think you've even told me what that reference is to. Maybe that's like from a science fiction movie or something. But anyway, John does all the wonderful graphics for the 5150 show. And so thank you so much, brother. I can't tell you how appreciated it is. I know that Andrew and Brad feel exactly the same. And man, some of the things that you put up during the week make me literally piss myself laughing. They're so funny, and obviously, you put a lot of time and effort into it, so thank you, John, for that.
Thank you, brother.
Who else we got? We got Teresa all the way from Brazil in there. Let's see. I don't want to miss anyone. I think that's all I'm seeing in the chat at this time. But obviously, more are going to jump in. Oh, avant-garde, beautiful. Good to see you as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. It means a lot. And yeah, definitely, John, we're blown away by your contributions, mate. So thank you so much. And I thought it was a ZD Fairlane 351. That's what I thought.
Sorry, what did you think?
He's a Revhead. That's an Aussie car. Ford Fairlane ZD 351. Yeah.
Of course it is. I should know that. I should totally know that.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. There it is. So, John, is that because you actually have that car? I'm guessing it probably is.
Maybe he's saying he used to drive it, so I'm assuming he doesn't have it anymore, which is a bummer because they were a nice car too.
Yeah, and it's a bummer because it's still his YouTube handle. So what are you going to do? Actually, I guess the reason I thought it might have been a reference to some science fiction movie like Blade Runner or whatever is because my number plate is LV426. So I'm not even going to tell what that is. If anyone in the chat knows what that is, let us know.
Okay,
I've seen the movie a few times, and it makes no immediate
bells going off.
Bang with me, but I'm sure someone in the chat will know. Brad, we've got a special shout out too, haven't we, brother? A special shout out to a very good friend of the channel.
Yes, we do. You shout out, Andrew. Who was it?
To Warren, our friend Warren.
Sorry, my apologies. Yes, Warren.
Okay.
I thought I was covering off John and had already done it, so I was like, so yeah,
brilliant.
Warren,
mate, we can't do two shout outs for him. Jeepers.
No, John, you're getting too much attention now. That's it. Your head's going to get too big. You won't fit through the front door, mate. Head will be swollen. Warren, mate, my apologies, and all our warm thoughts and prayers are with you, mate, at this time.
Sending love, Warren, for absolutely sure.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it, but someone in the chat has got what my number plate is already. Keith Campbell got it. It's Alien. It's the name of the planet that they find the eggs on.
Oh.
Okay. That rings a bell now. Yep.
Oh,
well done, Keith. Keith, if you were in Melbourne, you would have just earned yourself a free ticket to the Van Halen show in January. So I don't know if you can make it over here, but I promise you'll have a free ticket if you do.
Awesome. So, guys, we're streaming on our Facebook page, and if anybody has got Twitter, we're streaming on Twitter on our Twitter account. So I'm just going to go and have a look and see if that is working. It should be. Just give me a second, guys. Yeah, I can see. Oh, here we are. We're streaming. Okay, so we're on Twitter.
Yeah.
Do us a favor. If you're new to the channel, on the bottom there, you'll see some Instagram accounts. It's really, really important that you follow them because the guys on their Instagram accounts will keep you up to date with what we do here and also with what Hoss is doing, with what Brad's doing, with the Rock Professor, what they're up to. You'll even find me there. If you guys want to be attached to anything that we do here with your social media accounts, just flick us a message and we're happy to whack them on the bottom there. We want to share everything that we can. It's the least we can do for you guys in the chat. Oh, my Lord. I think that's about it. I'm going to pass it over to Hoss because he's going to do the shout-out because we've got a guy in the green room getting through about three or four bottles of beer. I think he's just about ready to leave. So, Hoss.
Okay, so just quickly before I introduce our very special guest, there's a couple of people entered the chat that I'd like to shout out to. We have, of course, Nelson Rodriguez. We've got Ellen, who's just jumped in. We've got Keith Campbell, who wins a ticket to the Van Halen show for guessing the movie Alien. We got Charlie S in there, and we got Johnny Heartbreaker as well. So thanks for joining us, guys. The special guest, of course, is fitting because we're going to have a show that talks all about the unique and wonderful and everything. Everyone says one of the nicest guys in rock and roll, Michael Anthony. So I'd like to introduce Jason Vorher, who is session bass player extraordinaire in Melbourne. And also, if anybody's seen my Melbourne guitar show video with, where we played the Van Halen 1 album, Jason is our bass player on that. And but of course, that's not all he does. I mean, Jason tours with Daryl Braithwaite here in Australia as well. He's a writer and a producer in his own right. In fact, he's working on his own album right now, which style-wise you could probably define as like Aussie country kind of music. So he's nearly finished working on that. And also, when I first met Jason was when we were both asked to tour with the Little River Band, which is Glenn Shorrock, B. Birtles, and Graham Goebel, who are the three songwriters and the three main voices from those harmonies with the Little River Band. So that was when I first met Jace, and we've been working on different projects on and off ever since. And when I found out, when I was asked to do the Van Halen 1 album for the Melbourne Guitar Show, and then thought about putting a band together, Jason was a natural choice because I found out, I didn't know this when we were doing the Little River Band tours, but he'd actually had a Van Halen tribute band way back in the day. And so, of course, once we found that out, it was a lock, and the rest, all you guys know. So without any further ado, maybe we should bring Jason on.
Well, sorry, I'm going to have to put that over there.
Busted.
I was trying to find, I don't have any Jack Daniels here. It would have been perfect, you know?
Yeah.
But no, it's rather beautiful, warm day here in sunny Melbourne.
Yep, sure is.
It's thanks for having me, guys. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
To talk about probably my favourite band of all time, Van Halen, and it's lovely that we're highlighting an often underrated member of that band, Michael Anthony.
Yeah,
here. Yeah, he's the sort of guy that brings you joy. A little the same as the other guys, and as Simon mentioned, yeah, we've known each other a long time, but back in 1991, a guitarist friend of mine, he knocked on my front door. He says, "Hey man, you want to come and jam? I've just met a drummer who can play Hot for Teacher, and I need you to come, and I want to play Hot for Teacher." So
wow,
we went around. We're only 20 years old. We went around and we played Hot for Teacher. I was blown away. So I thought, yes, let's do it. Let's play Van Halen for fun. And if we happen to get gigs out of it, so be it. But let's do that. So that was a great part. That was a great band I remember being in. Only lasted about a year, but it was, it was called New Halen. And we pretty much based ourselves off the Sammy Hagar era Van Halen.
That makes sense.
And every night we would get together, smoke marijuana, and watch Live Without a Net. And when it got to the end, we'd rewind the VHS tape and we'd start again, and we'd watch it again. And that's probably one of the greatest live concerts that I've ever seen, due to its uplifting nature. You know, everyone's smiling, they're having a ball. And us four guys as a band, we wanted to emulate that, in our minds anyway, Unfortunately, when you smoke too much marijuana, you're not actually as cheerful as you might come across. But beside the point. But the hardest part, believe it or not, in trying to sound like Van Halen was nailing the Michael Anthony harmony.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because I was the bass player, it was incumbent on me to be that guy. So not having a high voice, I actually started taking singing lessons to try and learn how the hell do you do that? How do you sing that high? And when I listened back to some of the old desk tapes, it was my attempt at a little weak falsetto style of Michael Anthony, but no, it was great times.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. And, you know, that Live Without a Net video was pivotal to me too. I first saw that, I think, when I was 13 or something like that. And, you know, I just wore that thing out, just like it sounds like you guys did, you know, and it really informed for me, you know, I mean, I was already very, very into music by then and was absorbing it all just with, you know, through my ears. But that was one of the first times where I realized visually, like the feeling that I would hopefully want to try and capture if I did music as a career when I got older, to have that much fun on stage. I mean, I just couldn't even believe it. Affirmed everything that as a kid that you feel about music. You think, wow, this is so much fun. But then to actually see these 4 people on stage having that much fun is incredible. And that, I think that's why that video, I mean, Jace, you and I are not the only ones. There's so many, pretty much anyone I know around our age grew up with that VHS tape and just wore it out, you know. It was energy. It was, what do they say? Lightning in a bottle, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was, every member of that band was equally important. And even with David Lee Roth, I'm not discounting him at all, but, you know, when you look at that live concert, each member brought their A game. And like Michael Anthony's performance on songs like Get Up, for instance, like that moment in the middle where he sings that, I won't do it, but, you know.
Go on.
Every time as a band, we'd sit and watch that, the 4 of us guys, when that moment came on during Get Up, we'd all just laugh our heads off and say, that's so cool. So cool. And I mean, Eddie, it's obvious Eddie is the coolest cat around. And, you know, he's responsible for the songwriting and the whole sound of Van Halen. But to my mind, the sound of Van Halen is Eddie Van Halen's guitar, Alex Van Halen's snare drum and hi-hats, and Michael Anthony's background vocals. They're just one of a kind, you know. Yeah. And Sammy and Dave, just excellent. I've never wanted to join sides on who's better or which era is better of Van Halen. Yeah. I don't see it like that, you know. I love it all equally, and I think the first time I ever saw Van Halen was on a TV show in Australia called Countdown, and it would have been the Panama film clip, and I was an impressionable 14-year-old, so a lot of things are happening when you're 14, if you know what I mean. And on comes Van Halen. This Panama, and I'm going, oh my God, this is the most exciting thing I've ever seen. From the like the stage looks just incredible, and what they got up to, you know, like hanging by one leg upside down, swinging across the stage, and going, whoa, I want to go to that concert. Because before all that, I mean, I was a big Kiss fan. I grew up with Kiss and, of course, AC/DC. But Van Halen was kind of Kiss and AC/DC, but they're a bit more sophisticated, if you know what I mean. I didn't know, I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was, but and then the Hot for Teacher film clip, once again, each of the guys in the band took on characters, so that they weren't just incredible musicians, they were entertainers. Mikey's like front and foremost in my mind as an entertainer, because he just knew how to take himself not so serious. Well, from the outset, you know, like dressing up as a sumo wrestler in the Hot for Teacher film clip. I mean, you know, he's obviously not taking himself too serious. And that kind of appealed to me, that sense of entertainment, you know?
Absolutely, brother. And, you know, when you were saying just now that it was like Kiss and AC/DC mixed in with some things and you can't quite put your finger on what those other elements were, I think I can. I think it was like Kiss and AC/DC, but infused with like Mozart and then bebop jazz like Charlie Parker. And that's the sophistication that you're talking about, because it was the show was as flamboyant as a Kiss show, but it had musicality that was more like Mozart, you know. And I think that that's why that combination is just so killer, and that's why it transcends whatever era or whatever different singer. It becomes irrelevant, because the core of what Van Halen is musicality infused with like an incredible live show. And that's why, you know, people talk about, especially those first bunch of albums, as almost like they were like almost like live albums recorded in the studio, you know. And that's the energy I hear from that. I mean, you listen to even songs like Bottoms Up and stuff, and David Lee Roth is laughing as he's singing some of the lyrics, you know. And so it feels like, even though there was no visual to it, you know, you were just listening, you could almost picture how that they were playing it live, you know. And I think that as certainly from the mid 80s onwards, as rock and roll sort of became more kind of slick and produced and corporatized, that live band in the studio element kind of changed, and it became more produced. Like for example, even behind Eddie's guitar solos, they ended up being like rhythm guitars overdubbed and stuff like that. So it became more like how the music was in that era. But that's why for me, that kind of less produced, more live feeling late 70s, early 80s kind of time capsule, that for me is my favorite time of all music, not just Van Halen, because there was a spontaneity and a looseness about it that I think that it was, you know, producers back then were really tasked with trying to capture what a live band already did and just get it in a studio. And it became less about, you know, overdubs and production.
Yeah, well,
there's a couple of things I just want to add to what you guys have said, you know, and it's really interesting that you guys mentioned that you guys got together as a band and you were hanging out and you were watching this DVD, because that's how I felt here. And we've done a couple of shows. If you guys go back on the channel, we've gone through and we've ranked the tracks on Live Without a Net. But for me, and especially, we never got to see any Van Halen live clips here. The only time that I ever got to see any kind of resemblance of them playing live was on the Jump video. Okay, so for us getting this VHS and watching them actually play live it was like an epiphany. And I just have to back up with what you guys said, the energy. But what I liked especially about it, though, is that you could see this closeness, this cohesion, that these guys were like a gang. You know, we saw that in the Beatles. You know, when the Beatles start off A Hard Day's Night, you see them running through the train station and all that. It's just like this. Yeah, you know, we can do anything, and if you want to be cool, do what we're doing. So the fact that you guys were trying to do that in Australia is mind blowing.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, like I said, it was probably 1984 was my first awareness of Van Halen. But then when I think about it, there was a movie called Night Shift with Henry Winkler. And there's a scene where they're in the morgue having a party. And in the background, they're playing You Really Got Me. And I go, oh, wow, that's You Really Got Me. That's cool. Who's that? I didn't know it was Van Halen. So, and then, you know, it's like how do you find out about music? You know, it's usually you might have an older brother or one of your mates will give you an album, or in Simon's case, I think it was his guitar teacher.
That's right. Yep.
So wherever you can sort of reference, wherever your reference points come from. So for mine, I had to go back and get the first album, which I really loved. And I must admit, I didn't know much about any of the other albums after that until 84. And the thing I loved about the first album in particular was that from a bass player's perspective, I'm a real Fender P bass man. I love the sound of a P bass. And I can tell that he's playing a P bass, and I just love the tone. But what blew my mind years later, what I wasn't aware of, because back then we didn't have isolated tracks. So I tried to learn it as close to the record as I could. But being younger, I never really worried about the tone so much until recently with Simon for the Fair Warning show. We did the whole Van Halen 1 album, and so we had the isolated tracks. So I went to Simon's house with my full rig and my pedal board, and we tried to A-B Michael Anthony's bass, and I tried to match the tone.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the what blew me away and what I didn't know was how dirty his bass sound was.
Yeah.
It was full of fuzz and places I didn't even expect it. And these isolated tracks are so good, you can tell whether he's playing fingerstyle or whether he's using a pick. I mean, you know, we went down the rabbit hole on this stuff to try and just mainly because we really love it. Mainly because we love it. We're not trying to prove anything. I think we're just doing it because, you know, it's new discoveries because of what's coming now. Which back in 1991, when I, you know, was in my other cover tribute band, I had no idea how to pull a sound or, you know, we just watched Live Without a Net, and I just used to try and emulate every bass fill from, you know, if you've ever listened closely to, I'm sorry to jump around, but if you've ever listened closely to One Way to Rock, there's only one way to rock, you know, on the opening track.
Yeah.
Have a listen to what Mikey's playing in that song. It is ridiculous. He's wherever there's a chance for him to fill a hole in the live format, he will. But he's such a tasteful player in that he knows how to keep solid, because you've got someone like Eddie Van Halen there. He's obviously come up with the song. He's a one of a kind, one of a generation musician. So he's paying the ultimate respect in how do we make this overall picture look even better. So I think if he were to be like the amazing Billy Sheehan, I just don't think it would have been the same. So I'm glad that, you know, Mikey's kind of simpler bass lines, you know, along the same lines of Cliff Williams from AC/DC. It just wouldn't be the same if you had any other guy. And even to the point of, you know, a lot of the times Mikey's playing eighth notes, but he's not just pedaling eighth notes. He's actually, you know, sometimes he'll be playing staccato parts or legato, but it's the length of the note that's so important. And you can hear it on songs like Unchained. Like that's just not a guy playing eighth notes. There's a real force behind what he's doing and a real solidness. And Panama is another good example of that too. It's that pulse that he's sort of got, you know, that's truly unique to Van Halen as well, you know.
But we got that first taste of the pulse on Running with the Devil, didn't we? Who could ever forget? You know, we talk about Eruption, but jeepers, you know, that intro.
Well, I just have to say,
very cool,
Andrew. What a kick it was for me when we did the guitar show. I virtually got to open the show.
I know.
That's those boom, boom, boom. Like that is so exciting, and to try and nail that tone, it's, you know, it's just that's such a great sound. And the footage I've seen of Mikey live, I don't know whether it was just for show or what, but he's actually got the bass in. He's playing it with his teeth almost. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen that footage.
Right.
It's like he's doing a Jimi Hendrix style at the opening. And he would do things like that. And other songs where he punched the bass. You know, it was just an exciting sort of, you know, just such a performer was Mikey, you know. So that's, And you know, there's other tracks on that first album that, you know, it's to try and nail the pocket and the swing on songs like I'm the One. I mean, that's you've really got to lock in with what Alex and Eddie are doing, because those guys, being brothers, like they just lock in. Like if you've seen Live Without a Net, like the song Get Up, Alex and Eddie are just locked. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
To have another guy turn up and be like a third brother in a way, which is what I consider Mikey was, you know, to them.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's funny because, and I've said this to people before, that I think one of the things that we all found so fascinating with the band Van Halen, you know, when we were young, is everything was larger than life. It was almost like 4 aliens from different planets had all landed and formed a band. You know, you had David Lee Roth from the planet of Las Vegas, and then you had Eddie from the planet of Mozart, and then you had Alex from the planet of, you know, I don't even know, like some incredible, like, you know, the origin of drumming in Africa or something, but like supercharged. And then you had Michael Anthony, who, like you were talking about the Live Without a Net video before. I mean, one of the things that you hear people say sometimes is that, you know, Alex has kind of got this old school, almost sort of, you know, I don't know what you call, like a Billy Cobham kind of jazzy sort of solo, the way he starts it. And then, you know, Eddie does his thing, which we all know. And then Michael Anthony's bass solo was really built around kind of the entertainment value and the sound effects and all of that. And some people don't like that. I actually think that it's perfect, because what it makes him from another planet as well, because no one was playing bass with those sounds, you know. And so to me, it just confirms that each of the 4 of them were just from completely different planets, but so they're all like weird kind of muso superheroes, you know. And I think that that's why, like, when you're a teenager, that's what you want in a band. You want your idols to seem like they're otherworldly. You know, you don't want them to be. So the fact that, like, as people and as personalities, they were always considered like the boys next door, like with their smiles and their vibe and their attitude. That was I think that really stuffed people up, you know. It was like the killer, as Jack Nicholson says in the movie, it's the killer combo, you know, and it is. It's the killer combo. You've got the boys next door with those smiles, but prowling the stage like superheroes from another planet, you know, and that's why it doesn't matter how good other bands were. And there's a lot of great bands that were innovative and changed music. But the reason there's no other Van Halens is because, to me, that recipe, you know, that soup of all those unique elements, and everything was turned up to like 11. You know, the personalities were 11, the smiles were 11, the light show was 11, the music was 11. Some bands could have some elements that were 11, but the other elements were just 10. You know,
it's a very American kind of thing to be. Americans are great at that entertainment side of. They've always been bigger than life. Not to say Australians haven't been like that, but I think as Australians, we're a little more reserved than them. But I remember watching the bass solo, and I'll admit, even as a bass player, musically, I don't think I really enjoyed that music aspect so much. It was more about the entertainment value in it. And like, he comes out and he just looks like that college guy, you know, he's from the fraternity and all that, and he's just the party, like you saw in those American films. Or even, you know, I remember back in the 80s, the WWF was a big thing with, you know, with Hulk Hogan and those larger than life personalities. And then you see this Michael Anthony carry on, and it's such a similar kind of vibe. It's like he was putting on a character, you know, and getting out there like a superhero, like you're saying, because, you know, he had the cape on.
Yeah. But Jace, but brother, even the way at the start of that solo, you know, someone brings out a chair and they sit his ass down in a chair with the cape on and bring him a whiskey. I mean, that's when you talk about like an American frat party. It's almost like someone's at the party going, "Hey, this guy can play bass. Bring him a chair." And so they put him in a chair and they say, "No, give him a drink and give him the bass and see what happens." And then what happens is this incredible explosion of sound, you know. And but even that whole idea of, I'm going to start this sitting down, you know that some crazy shit is about to happen.
Oh yeah, and with all those effects, I mean, how could you not be sort of influenced being in a band with a guitar player like Eddie? And he would have seen Eddie play up close and see the latest effect pedal that Eddie would have brought or whatever sounds. So he would have been inspired by that. How did you make that work? He would have been, because I don't think there's been many other bass players who use those type of effects. Maybe Larry Graham. Look, it's hard to tell who Mikey's influences are on bass.
Actually, that's something I would dearly love to know. I'd love to know what that is. Yeah.
Because you can clearly see that Eddie and Alex, they have probably a classical background or maybe a background in jazz. Whereas with Mikey, maybe he was a jazz guy too. But it's hard to kind of tell. He's a damn fine rock player. And I think, like I was saying before, each member was equally as important. And his whole performance during that solo, it had a start, a middle, and a finish, and I guess that's what you want. And it just proved what a world-class entertainer he was, so.
Well, what I would like to put forward to you, Jace, is to get you on to do Live Without a Net properly with us. That would be great if you could come on with us and
great.
go through Live Without a Net, because I think that's there's something that resonating here. The alchemy of the band at that particular time was
Killer.
Was like lightning in a bottle, and I can hear the passion with what you're talking about there. I know, Hoss, same with you, mate. You haven't had a chance to really give it a whole lot of airtime with us, so I think we should do a fair warning takeover of the 5150 show, and you guys can do Live Without a Net with us, because I think for some reason we skipped over the bass solo, and I was a bit like, well, we should probably address it, because there's people like yourselves that are actually, see the musicality in it and the fun element, which, I did a ranking on it, which I didn't get to do, but my ranking on the bass solo was just Mikey's personality coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. It's all personality.
Yeah.
So I think we'd love to get you guys to do a takeover on the 5150 show.
All right.
I think that's an episode within itself, though, because I think we could spend probably 2-3 hours on that by the sounds of it.
Oh yeah, we totally could. We should. That would be a lot of fun. And I think that particularly that Live Without a Net video goes so deep with people, as deep as any of the albums do. That would be really fun to talk about that.
For me, like when I was just listening intently to what you were talking about, Jace, with Mikey's bass playing, and I'm not a bass player as such. I record bass on my songs at the moment and things like that. I'm not a gigging type bass player. For me, I've always, had Mike in a very high esteem as a bass player, not just because I think he, not technically or for any other reason, than he always played the right thing for the right part of the song. He never really tried to, he knew his place in the band was to keep that bottom end solid, and that's for me the epitome of a remarkable musician that knows what to play at the right particular point in the song all the time. Like, it's not just randomly occasionally plays something perfect for the song. It's the whole way through, whether it's a simple, what I call root note Roger, playing some amazing stuff, and especially towards, with my favorite album is Carnal Knowledge, and then Balance would be up there. And I know Mikey really, really enjoyed those albums, because obviously for him it was the real first time that he felt like his bass was being put in the mix where it should be, and all sorts of things. And he's playing on those records. I think he was really inspired, and you can hear some phenomenal, like he's playing 16s and stuff, and then all of a sudden he does these and then he pulses again, and he's letting. For me, he worked with Alex so well, but he worked with Ed so well too. There was like this alchemy, regardless of singer, and I love all the singers of Van Halen, but regardless of singer, the three of those guys had something. There was like that alchemy. The three people knew how to play together so well. As much as I love Wolfgang Van Halen, when he joined Van Halen, I was heartbroken that Mikey wasn't part of Different Kind of Truth. Mainly, I know that Different Kind of Truth might not have happened without Wolf, so I'm not taking that away from. I'm not Wolf bashing here. I love Wolf. He's great.
It's fine, brother. It's fine. We get it. Yep.
I was heartbroken because I loved Mikey so much and what he contributed to the band. So for me, you know, I'm just sort of commenting on everything I've listened to here. I think his bass playing was just phenomenal throughout the whole career of Van Halen. Everything he played perfectly for every song. He let everyone have their space, and that bass solo in Lower Without a Net, it's his personality. That's him. He's a good guy. He's just seemed like this humble, happy-go-lucky bloke that just wanted to come out. You know, Alex had his drum solo and Eddie with his, and he's like, well, I'm just going to come out and be fun. You know, what else can you do? You're not going to compete.
And look, bro, and I fully agree with you because his personality went to another level when he joined Hagar and they formed Chicken Foot. Yeah. And then we got to see Mikey again in a different perspective. But I just want to back up what Jason said a little bit earlier and what you guys were saying a little bit about bass players, because I remember reading an article where Mikey said that he understood very, very clearly early on when he considered what was happening with the lead singer and Eddie, that he had to keep the beat. He had to make sure that he had something there for these guys to fall back on. And that's sometimes something that we might forget if we haven't played or jammed in bands, how important having that bass and that foundation, because without being disrespectful, you know, sometimes people say, oh, well, you know, there's nothing flashy going on there with this particular bass player. But you go and ask the guitar player of that band, they'll say they'll never trade that bassist in for anybody. Because you know, so, and you guys on the bottom there know exactly what I'm talking about, because you guys have played together and played this whole, you know, Van Halen 1 together. So you know exactly what your job is.
Well, I can say I remember doing a gig with Glenn Shorrock, who is the lead singer from Little River Band. And I'm playing bass. At the end of the gig, he turned around to me and he said, I didn't even notice you tonight. Now, initially I was offended, but then I thought about it and I thought, no, that's perfect. I've done my job. Yeah. Because the bass, because, you know, most non-musicians, they watch a band, they won't even know what does that instrument do? They can't hear it. But if you make a mistake, hit a bump note, they hear it then.
They hear it then, yeah.
So, I mean, I play in country bands as well. Oh, I have over the years, and there's a genre where if you're playing 1 and 5 on the bass, if you make a mistake, everyone in the whole place can hear it. So, whereas if you're playing a flurry of notes, you might hit a bum note. Oh, that went by so quick you didn't even know. So, I think it's important. Yeah, you can always tell a bass player rather than a guitarist who's playing bass, I think. And and as I've gotten older, when I started playing, I wanted to learn slap and pop because it was the most exciting thing on the bass. I thought, wow, those funky guys playing like slap, it's incredible. But I'd get to a gig and I couldn't use any of that stuff. I had to just play dung 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 dung, because if I did play the show off thing, the singer would yell at me, "What are you doing, man? Just play the song." So I think the better bass players, or the ones that get the most work, are the guys that know what their role is. So I think Michael Anthony truly fell into that category of a guy who absolutely knew what his role was, and he's just and not so. We haven't even touched on his vocal prowess in detail yet, but I think he's the sound of the BVs in that band.
I'm going to share something quickly with you guys. So I went and checked out Michael Anthony bass track videos in preparation for the show just to get the vibe for the guy. Yeah. And it blew me away how many comments from Van Halen fans didn't even talk about his bass playing hardly. They were just going on about how great his vocals. He's Van Halen because of his vocals. It's phenomenal. Go and check out any of those videos, and blows me away.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them don't. They probably, because it's, well, I got to say, when I was younger and I was in a Van Halen tribute band, 1991, we had a lot of musos that would come and see the band. And everyone would come up to the guitar player and everyone would come up to the drummer. They ignored me.
We're not ignoring you. We love you, bro.
No, but it was cool because I figured, of course, I mean, if I want to listen to bass guitar music, you know, there's Jaco Pastorius, there's, you know,
hey, Joe, can I interrupt you for 1 second because I'll forget this, and it's really important, is that I actually feel like in the way that Michael Anthony's sound is probably organically the way he plays and his equipment, but also the way it's mixed and produced on the records, there is an element to my ears that is a little bit Jaco, and especially when you listen to some of his faster bass lines, like for example on Mean Street is a really good one. If you listen to the bass on that, there's a tone to it, that bridge pickup thing with fingers. It's actually not unlike Jaco. You listen to the bass part on Pound Cake, same thing. Judgment Day, same thing. There's plenty of examples. I actually think Jaco is. I'd be surprised if Jaco wasn't an influence, actually.
Well, it's funny because I noticed the first couple of albums, to my ears, he was playing a P bass, and then around the time of, I think it could have been Fair Warning, the bass sound changed and it was kind of thicker and kind of more defined. And that was Mean Street, that was Unchained. And I think that's when he switched to the Yamaha BB bass, which had the back pickup, the bridge pickup, which is a real Jaco Pastorius thing. So I got a suspicion, I'd love to find out from Mikey myself, but whether that was a conscious thing to try and get the back pickup sound happening, to have a bit more definition in the tone. I know that's just what I sort of gathered. And then For Unlawful, Carnal Knowledge came along, and much to my delight, because can I just show you this one? Wait on.
Yeah, please do.
Going to present you, Jace, if that's okay. We're going to present you.
Present me?
Yeah, that means you're going to get the full screen, brother.
Woo!
Oh.
Yeah. Well, this is a 1979
Musicman Stingray.
Stingray.
Yeah. I love that.
Yes, and it's got the it's all original, and that color is called pewter. It's a custom color.
I love it.
And it's had a lot of wear over the years from cigarette smoke in the pubs that we play here in Australia. But I don't actually use this bass anymore, not for gigs.
That would have been expensive when you bought it. That they're not cheap basses.
Well, I bought it in 19...
Are you saying you had that since new?
No. It's a 1979. I bought it in
1979,
around 86. So when...
Look at that fretboard.
When I was doing the Van Halen band to begin with, all I had was a Steinberger bass back then, which wasn't really the look, but back then in the 80s, that's kind of what everyone played. Sure. But then I bought this, and then later on, much to my delight, Michael Anthony started using Musicman basses, and Pound Cake was done on a Musicman. And as you can notice, it's the Musicman pickups back towards the bridge.
Yeah.
That's actually, the tension back here is really tight. And to try and play that, I mean, I'm not plugged in, of course, but to try and do that for 4.5 minutes.
Wow.
It takes stamina, regardless of what's happening on the left hand, which if you listen, there's lovely little licks. And I think Brad will know this, the seventh seal, that's another bass line which has the 16th pattern. Yep. So that's the maybe we'll play this. We'll bring this out for the Corner Hotel gig. And I've got this. Sorry, mate.
Before you go, can you also show us that Hofner bass you've got there that I spy in your guitar rack? Sorry to detract you away from your. Oh,
this isn't a real one. This is just a cheap knockoff, but it's still a Hofner.
Oh,
But Rod Bustos knows a lot about these basses. He'll be coming on later, and he gave me a lot of great points about this. These are half round strings, and I was doing a Beatles show, and I was learning all the songs on the P bass, and it just wasn't right. So you have to have one of these. And
thank you for indulging me.
Oh, no worries. But I tell you, the thing about this bass, I mean, you always go for that McCartney thing, which is kind of palm mute and play with the pick up and just play with the front pickup. I think it is the neck pickup, but it's such a joy to play, and you can get so much bottom end out of this thing. It's incredible, you know. But it feels great to play. And then
sorry to detract you. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. Don't worry about that. You don't have to apologize. And I actually went and bought one of these, which is the new model BB.
Oh,
this is a 5-string.
Beautiful.
I'm not sure that Mikey was a 5-string guy, but it's the Billy Sheehan inspired bolt configuration where the bolts are coming on the angle.
So there's enough bolts, is there?
I think there's enough bolts, but it's not like a set neck or anything. But these are relatively cheap, you know. And this is a passive model. But it's such a great sound and very what we like to call in Australia meat and potatoes. So there's plenty of meat on the note and very even. You could hear every single note you play. And if I dial this tone knob back, I can almost get a similar tone to the early Yamaha BB basses that Michael Anthony would have used, like the broad bass they're called. But you know, they're very overlooked, these Yamaha basses, but they are a great thing, you know. And then of course
you've even got Jack Bruce's bass there. Oh my lord!
Well, this is a this is a Greco. It's an early 70s Greco. It's not in the best. It's a short scale.
It's beautiful.
And I was inspired by a band called Free. With Paul Rogers and you know, something like All Right Now and so forth.
Andy Freeman. Andy Fraser, yeah. Great bassist.
This has got flat wound strings, and you can really get that Andy Fraser kind of tone if that's what you're after. And then,
wow.
Then I've got this baby here I can show you quickly too. This is great for me. I love doing this. This is a 1973 Fender Precision Bass Fretless.
Wow.
It's not original. It's a bit of a workhorse, but this is a great one. It's beautiful neck.
So beautiful.
I try my Pino Palladino licks out on this one.
Dude.
I don't go very far with that. This is the one I used at the guitar show. It's a Nate Mendel Fender Precision Bass, which is kind of like a copy of a 1971. And it's got the hip shot there. Drop it. But it's, you know, badass bridge, and I'll show you this last but not least. Sorry, guys.
No.
Don't ever apologise.
No.
I am heading off to a gig.
We love it. We love it, bro.
And this is the baby.
Oh yes.
Jeepers.
I mean, we've had a bit of an issue here, but we've gotten over it. That's all natural wear, believe it or not. This is a 1972 P bass. It's had the 1980s makeover. This is like the 5th set of pickups that it's had in it. But they're really nice pickups from a guy called Mark Emanuele here in Melbourne, Victoria.
Wow.
And badass bridge again. When I bought it, it had EMG pickups in it. But, back then in the 80s, that's what you did. You tried to modify your bass or your instrument to try and make it like the new thing that come out. But later in years, you realise there's a reason, bass design hasn't really gotten much better than a P bass, in my opinion. I think Leo Fender got it right straight away,
You have to agree. I have to agree on the P basses.
I do love jazz basses because of that. They have a beautiful tone, and a P bass on its own sounds a little bit rude, but it just seems to fit in the great spot in the frequency range on stage. I can always hear what I'm doing when I play this. So,
Jace, do you find P basses when you record with them, they sit in the mix a lot better than most basses?
Well, I do quite a bit of session work, and this is the most recorded bass that I own. I always take this, and I try and go back to, I try and take the Musicman, give that a run, or take the 5-string, but they always want this. So they're great, I would love to get an old 50s 57 or something like that, but they're getting so expensive now. And also, you can buy cheap guitars now that are actually really good. So there's no need. I don't believe there's a need to spend, over $1,000. I mean, if you got the money, great, do it. But you can get a really good guitar now for cheap that will service you well. I mean, that 5-string Yamaha, I've toured Australia with that thing. $100. So you know what I mean? So it's not, it's obviously lovely. Geez, if I had $10,000 to spend on a bass, wouldn't that be something, But to me, they're tools of the trade is what they are. I'd love to be a collector. You'd think I was a collector, but this is just out of necessity. It's kind of what you need if you're doing studio work or that sort of thing. Trying to play different roles as a musician.
Yeah, of course. They're awesome, Jace. Thanks for showing those.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
That P bass is my favourite, mate.
This one? It's a cracker. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. Beautiful. I just throw it on the floor like Eddie would do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
The stories of Eddie Van Halen throwing his striped Kramer into the back of a pickup truck. I just love hearing about that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing those, Jace. That was awesome.
Yeah, man. Killer.
Oh, it's time for me to head off to my gig,
guys.
Go
down.
Thanks for having me so much. It's been a pleasure, and definitely love to come back and have a chat again, guys, if you'll have me.
Come back, brother. You're more than welcome. You have a permanent invitation to come on anytime.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome, Jason.
You had us all captivated, mate, so thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, well, guys, thank you, Jace.
Kick him off. Finally. Oh.
There's a couple of things. I want to share with you guys. I watched this bass documentary a couple of years ago, and I forget who the bass player is. I'm trying to think of it, but anyway, he's got this switch on his bass. He's a famous bass player. He's a session guy, and he calls it his producer's switch.
Oh yeah.
And what he does. Have you seen the yeah? So what happens is the producer says, "Oh, I want you to do something to your sound or to your tone or whatever." So he flicks the switch and it does nothing, and the producer goes.
Guys, I just wanted, while I just seen Fruitcake Tony in the chat, just want to thank him for flicking us a guitar pick that arrived yesterday in my mail. So,
cool!
Thank you so much. You've been very kind and given me a T-shirt in the past and a guitar pick. So Shouts out, brother. Thank you so much.
Oh, beautiful. Fruitcake
Okay.
Tony, yeah.
So if we can return the favor, there you go. I love that. That's awesome.
Thank you. I got mine a couple of days ago too, so thank you very much, Fruitcake Tony. You're very generous. Appreciate it, brother. Yeah, you're awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Mine's on my guitar over there, so thank you.
Yeah, we don't expect it, but we appreciate the kindness. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of picks, Brad, you know how to confuse an Irishman, right?
How's that?
Present him with a shovel and a rake and tell him to take his pick.
I got a lead guitarist joke here because we've got a few guitar players in the chat, including 3 on the screen here. Right. Yeah. So how many lead guitarists does it take to change a light bulb?
I've heard this, but I want to see if it's the same one. So I'm going to let you tell me.
Andrew? I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it. So you're going to have to tell me, brother. Because I'm the man.
Well, can I tell you and see if I've got it right? And if it's not right, then you can tell me your version.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I heard it was all of them. All but one to stand around with their arms crossed, saying they could do it faster than that, and one to do it.
No, that's not my answer.
No, okay.
But I like that one. That's good. So it's how many lead guitarists does it take to change a light bulb? 1, and 100 others to tell them that they can do it better.
Okay. So, come on. And what do you call 1,000 guitarists at the bottom of the ocean? A good start. And you know you throw a drowning guitarist, right? His hand. But that's all right. I got some drummer ones too. How do you know when a drummer's at your door? Knocking slows down.
I've heard that one, but I've heard it say that the tapping goes out of time.
Yeah. How do you know when a singer's at your door? Because they can't find the key and they don't know when to come in. All right, that's enough.
All right. That's the intermission. That's the intermission, ladies and gentlemen, for the 5150 show. Now we're back on schedule. Bro, Hoss, what I want you to do for me, if you can get some social media links for Jace for us to attach to the show, I'll be grateful. I don't know how.
I'll definitely do that. No problem. Yeah.
I don't know how active he is on social media, but obviously we're here to help anybody push anything that they're doing on social media.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
So we've got a few more people in the chat now, and we want to thank everyone for jumping in. But Hoss, do you just want to repeat the date for the Melbourne people? Because there's a few Melbourne people in the chat here for your corner show gig, and just if they weren't here before, at least then they get to hear it firsthand.
I certainly will. Yeah. So the tribute to Eddie Van Halen show here in Melbourne has been rescheduled to the eve of Eddie Van Halen's birthday, which is Tuesday, the 25th of Jan. So obviously anyone in Melbourne, you can buy tickets from the Corner Hotel directly from their website, or you can ask me really, really, really nicely for a favor, and I'll see what I can do. But it's going to be a great night. The Corner Hotel have also instructed me that all being well, the government have told them there is no restriction on the room numbers in that time in January, which means that not only do we get to do it now going into midnight for Eddie's birthday, but it looks like we can have a full capacity room, which will be amazing.
Awesome.
Really amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's fantastic news, bro. I just want you to do something for me, please. Can you get your presentator's voice on, because we have someone in the green room who's ready to jump in and do some bass talking with us. I'm going to pass it over to you, brother. Okay. So another very highly esteemed gentleman and an incredible bass player who I'm also proud to call a friend, and who also will be joining us on stage for the second half of the show at the Corner Hotel to play some songs, is the one and only Rodrigo Bustos. I've known Rod for a long time,
and we've played together lots. We've toured together with Vanessa Morosi, an incredible Australian singer. He's also played and toured with Kate Sobrano. He's also a producer and has a recording studio in his own right. He also, if you've been on my YouTube channel and you've seen the Racer X tribute show, he's the bass player for that, which is no small feat, obviously.
Wow.
And currently he's also running around doing the Australian Prince tribute show called Purple Revolution, which is an incredible show as well, and as authentic to Prince as anything I've ever seen. So, yeah, Rod Bustos is the man.
Hey, Rod.
Hey.
Good to see you, brother.
Oh, hey, thanks for having us. This is rocking. I was just sitting there listening to the whole thing, just going, yeah. It's all yips.
Yeah.
It's so good. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I think I'm in the same position as Jace. Like I'm going to go to a sound check in around about an hour's time.
Okay.
For the Prince show as well.
And that's for the Prince tribute show.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, which is on tonight, which is great. You know, one of the first gigs back in Melbourne.
Well, actually, can I just quickly say then, for anyone in the chat or watching this show live that is in Melbourne and you want something to do tonight, you should absolutely get your ass to the Mimo Music Hall in St Kilda and the Prince tribute show. It's incredible.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
It's Mike Anthony bass riffs in a Prince show.
It is. Awesome, brother. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is rocking. I mean, this is so good that it's like we're always talking about, you know, we should do something for Mikey, you know, because there's never enough light shine on him, you know. And this is really cool. So, I mean, I was totally agreeing with everything that Jason was saying. I was like, yes, that's totally it. For me, my introduction to it all was basically 5150.
Yeah. So that was
like about 8 years old, or 8 or 9 years old when that. But it wasn't the actual. I remember I went to someone's house and it wasn't the actual 51. It wasn't Live Without a Net. It was basically, and it wasn't Dreams or anything like that. I remember going to someone's house and the older brother just put on the album and the first thing was you know, Good Enough.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hello, baby, that whole thing. And I was like, I remember just sort of sitting going, that's kind of, it just, you know, when it blows your head wide open to all these things going, what the hell is this? And it was just so good. And just imagining who it was too, because obviously I didn't know what they looked like and all that stuff. And then Live Without a Net, that's when I saw Live Without a Net.
Yeah. And then, I mean, that's just a life changer watching that live concert, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember we used to kind of keep borrowing it from the video shop every week. That's how we kind of done it back then.
Yeah.
And then wearing it out, and then, you know, eventually sort of, you know, doing the illegal copy. Saying that every day. But
exactly that moment. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that what you guys were talking about before, that whole sort of party sort of, you know, frat boy kind of thing, which was really cool because it was, for us, it was like, at the time in the 80s as well, you know, kind of, all these movies were coming out like that, you know what I mean? There was a whole sort of, what they used to call the tit and ass movies, you know, that whole party thing. And that was just kind of that part. But I just remember sort of being drawn to Mikey sort of even early on then, because he was like, as Ed was, you know, always with a smile and sort of, you know, just playing like mofos the whole time, jumping around, doing this and that. And then kind of later on, really sort of acknowledging that and sort of appreciating that, because with some of us, as yourself, Hossie, have been blessed to play on some big stages, you know, outdoor sort of stages and stuff like that. And then you kind of go back and you talk about that video and you go, imagine, like, remember what they're doing on those big stages, you know, with big sound and big amps and stuff like that, and playing like the way they did, like absolute demons.
Yeah.
In itself, you know, and then actually doing that every night in front of thousands of people. And, you know, obviously they were kind of loving the drink and whatever back then too. I mean, these guys were absolutely unstoppable.
Yeah.
Back then, you know. So that's kind of where it kind of began with me with 5150, and then OU812, and then for Unlawful, and yeah. So I kind of, that's me. I appreciate the whole. I'm an any Halen sort of kind of thing as well. I love it all.
So
But
did
for
you
me,
go?
that special time was then.
So did you go forward through the albums with Sammy from 5150 and then go backwards, or did you go both directions forward and back at the same time?
I think I remember sort of going when I got to OU812. I remember then going back and then sort of moving forward. But obviously the Hagar stuff was kind of prominent for me. Anyway. Yeah. Because as low as his bass was in those mixes, I could hear him. You know, but you know, as us being selfish bass players, you know, you go, I just want more bottom end. I want more of this. You know. I kind of didn't understand it back then, production wise. You know, I was too young.
Yeah, of course. And you know, sometimes I think, and it depends on the album. Sometimes I think it isn't that the volume level of the bass is incredibly low. I mean, I'd probably still crank it a bit, but Rod, you know me, I love bass. In fact, I can tell a quick story that Rod knows how much I love bass because when we were both touring with Vanessa Morosi, and if we're on a really big stage, like a festival stage, and there was like bass, you know, Ampeg fridges on both sides of the stage, I'd always get him to run a speaker lead over to a full 8x10 over by my guitar amp on the other side of the stage, which used to drive my sound guys crazy, but I used to absolutely love it because I need those frequencies where I'm standing, or I just don't feel, I feel unsupported, you know. And I think maybe it's because when you grow up playing in clubs, there's so much bottom end because you're standing on front of subs, basically. The stage is built.
Oh, yeah.
That as soon as you go out onto a bigger stage and the subs are in front of you, I can't feel the bass. And so, and especially when you've got someone like Rod playing, you want to feel every note he's playing because it's killer. So, and Rod's sound is killer. So, yeah, whenever possible, I used to get one of the crew guys to find a really long speaker cable and plug in a second 10 on my side. We only got to do it once or twice because whoever was doing sound for us completely cracked the shits with me. So, but you know, but that's how it is. And you know, what I was going to say though about Michael Anthony's bass level on the records, yeah, I'd probably turn it up a little bit. But also the thing that I find across all the records, whether it's in the Roth era or the Hagar era, is that there's not a lot of bottom end. It's not that it's quiet. It's that there's no very low frequencies. And to be honest, there's not even a lot of very low frequencies in Alex's kick. So therefore, I almost feel like the way that it was engineered was to carve out space so that Alex's kick and the bottom end of Eddie's guitar was always front and center. And then everything else was kind of secondary to that because I can't think of any other reason why across so many different records you would have a bass sound that by modern standards is not very bassy, actually, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it kind of like when it balance, I mean, the production on Balance is amazing just in general. That's one of my favorite sort of sounding albums, you know what I mean, as well. But the thing is, I mean, I got to see Halen when they came out with Gary Cherone at the Sydney Entertainment Centre. I was at that gig that apparently is on video too. And that was I was there to see, you know, the band and I remember even that album as well. Like, I think Mikey plays on something like 3/4 of that album, and the rest is Ed.
3 songs.
3 songs.
Yeah.
He only played on 3 songs.
3 songs, yeah.
Was it did he play on Without You?
Yep. The singles and you can tell the ones he's playing on.
Yeah, I mean, those songs that like he's playing on Without You, like especially that riff in the middle as well, which is incredible. You know what I mean? But from there on, I mean, that whole Balance really got me because it was the first time I actually heard Van Halen in full production. But to me, that's what it sounded like to me. You know, like the drums sounded like drums, and you know, everything was like for me. The way I would personally, a very selfish kind of thing, that's the way I wanted to hear Van Halen. ever since 5150. Like, imagine hearing. I'd say that. Imagine hearing 5150 like this. But then they've got their time too. You know what I mean? Like, I can still chuck on 5150 and just crank it, and it's there. You know what I mean?
So, hey, Rod, let me ask you: if you had to pick one, given it was the first album that you ever heard when you were young, is that still your favorite?
5150.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the book I bought when it came out.
Oh, cool. Look at that. Look at that.
Little transcribey book.
Well, as you know, brother, actually, I don't know if everyone in the chat or watching this on a replay might know this, but for our show at the Corner Hotel, we're starting the second half of the show with tracks from the 5150 record, because also that particular record has a special place in my heart too. And Rod's going to be playing bass on those tracks, which is, thank you, brother. I'm so honored that you'll be able to jump up with us and do that, because that's really exciting for me.
Oh man, I'm hanging. I remember telling Hossie that I think when we do that show and we play those songs, I've been practicing since '86. So
good one.
I've never had the chance to play these songs. I don't know. It's one of those things when you kind of think of it like that, you go, yeah. I think since then, since '86, '87, I've been playing those in the bedroom. You know, when you used to play the album start to finish, that kind of thing. You know, and you play it, thinking that one day I'll get to play these live. You know what I mean? Like with some mates and stuff like that. And that never happened with me, because we all kind of went through different sort of musical genres from then on, and it just never eventuated. But now this gig happening now is going to be the first time for me to play them. So yeah, it's going to be. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if you know this, brother, but apart from those first album tracks that we did at the Melbourne Guitar Show, this is going to be the first time that I will play most of these other songs live as well.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I can't even imagine a bigger privilege than to play the music of my heroes that I absorbed as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, and get to play it in front of a crowd of people that are hanging to hear it reproduced live. Obviously it won't be exactly the same, because we're not those players. We'll do it with our own personality and stuff. But still, just to even be playing those notes is a privilege.
And with a bunch of mates as well. You know what I mean?
And with friends, exactly.
We're going to be up there just having fun.
That's the key word, guys. That's the key word, guys. And I think that's one thing that's overlooked a bit with Van Halen fans is Van Halen music is fun. And I watched Pete Thorne the other day.
Yeah.
And he was talking about this when a comment came up about Wolf. And he did mention that, Van Halen fans are funny, and they'll pick on one little note or this or that. It's like, well, the whole element behind Van Halen when they were up playing live was about the fun, and the element of the music was fun, or what, so that to me, you just hit it on the nail on the head there, Hoss, just getting up and having fun. Both, like, you guys are just going to get up and play the music the best you guys can, but have fun, and that will transpire over the perfect notes or the perfect whatever.
Yeah, Brad, you're exactly right. And what Rod was just saying, I mean, those feelings that we all felt when we were watching Live Without a Net, like that, how they look like kids in a candy store, that's honestly what we're going to be feeling like on stage. Like standing up there at full volume, playing that stuff in front of people. I mean, that for me is my version of trying to capture the energy of Live Without a Net and being a child in a candy store. That's the same thing for me. And I just know we're going to be, we won't even notice that there's people that are in the room. We're just going to be looking at each other going, really? Can you believe this?
That's exactly right. It's going to be the funniest moment ever.
And I saw a question there that you threw up, Andrew, from Keith. Will I be doing the Live Without a Net version of 5150? No. And the only reason for that is I just really love the flow of the recorded guitar solo on 5150 on the album. I think it's cool that on Live Without a Net, how they break it down and they kind of go into this sort of, it's a bit more of a journey. But for me, because like Rod, because I grew up with that album, I think we'll want to play it just like the album, you know.
Yeah.
And just like what we did at the Melbourne Guitar Show, where, I mean, mostly I'm going to be playing the stuff note for note. I mean, 5150 will be the same. I'll be pretty much playing all those licks note for note. And not because I wouldn't want to like branch out into my own solo. It's because I just can't hear other notes in my head. They're the notes that have been imprinted on my psyche since I was 12 years old. So, you know, I mean, if I had to do a version where I needed to stretch the song out, what I'd probably do is then go into my own version of me playing like Eddie. But at the end of the day, I'm actually happy just playing it note for note because that's what I hear in my head, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there was another question there, wasn't there, Andrew? It was back maybe a little bit.
Yeah, about your favourite bass.
Yeah, so Fruitcake Tony Rod asked, what is your number one bass and can you show it? Do you have it there?
My number one bass. Actually, it's the Mike Anthony.
Woohoo! There you go.
Which is this
All
guy.
right, we're going to present you, brother. Hold on.
Yeah. See if I can get
man, that thing looks gorgeous.
Which is the California made one.
Wow.
It's beautiful, and it comes all, I mean,
dude, that looks awesome. I love the color. I love the color too.
Yeah, apparently it's I can't even remember. It's got a funny name, something orange, Bible or something like that. I think it is.
Okay.
This thing is amazing to play. It's got his own design pickups and everything like that, and it even comes with like a signed scratch plate as well.
Oh, that's cool.
And everything like that, which is really cool. And you get a little photo. I couldn't find the photo, but you get this little photo of him signing it as well. But this bass overall is kind of one of those basses that, for me, was sort of designed for my playing too. Because I mean, if there's anything that I can sort of take away from the whole Mike Anthony thing, is that I always used to focus, or always still do focus, on his right hand and how solid that it is. It's a rock, you know what I mean? And that thing never moves away from what it's doing. And you just hear it like in For Unlawful, Carnal, like Pound Cake and stuff like that. You hear it in Seven Seal. I always kind of was more that kind of player that would listen to song players like that and really appreciate it. And that's why I always loved Mikey, like from the beginning, because he was an absolute perfection in terms of song playing. And imagine the immense pressure playing with King Edward, you know what I mean? In that sense, you know what I mean, from other people, you know what I mean? And he's playing just always felt like, I think Jace mentioned it before, he was like that third brother. Like for a guy to go in there and start playing along with all these riffs and with the drummer as well, you know what I mean? With Alex as well, the other brother, and just making it sound so good and solid. And he knew his job in that band from an early stage. You can just tell that when you listen to the albums.
Yeah,
you can't put anyone else in that equation. You know what I mean? It was a bummer to see him not there when they done those shows in the 2000 sort of, you know, what was it, 2015, around that sort of era or before. Yeah. But then at the same time, you kind of, you know, as you get older and you start having families and stuff like that, you kind of go, but Ed wanted to just play with his kid, you know, and have fun there. He was having fun whenever he saw his kid on stage. He had fun with him, you know what I mean? It's kind of where his life was at the time, you know.
Yeah.
But
I don't think we would have seen Van Halen on stage without Wolf, to be honest with you. So I guess we're going to have a bit of gratitude towards that as well.
He definitely gave him. It was almost like a lifeline to kind of get back and do it again, especially with Dave and all that. That's what it seemed like from afar, you know, from us, because, you know, here in Australia, we always kind of seem very far away from that.
Yeah,
from whatever happens there, you know.
So, Rod, do you think that Michael Anthony played the way he did in Van Halen out of respect for Ed and Alex? Like, he just fit. He was like that anchor point, kept it all, that bottom end held in tight, and he just had that unique way of reading what both were doing and playing the absolute perfect thing at absolute any moment.
Yeah, I do. I reckon but my personal opinion is, like, when I listen to the albums early on as well, I kind of feel that he found that sort of within maybe, like the second album. That's the way I hear it anyway. The way to sort of sit there in between Alex and Ed, and then because we all know that once you're in the studio and you're recording stuff, the producer and the engineer and that other guys that are kind of making it come out and sound the way that you hear it on albums and stuff like that, it's not the actual players themselves, you know what I mean? As much as they can sort of, I mean, with Ed, it's obviously, King Edward is basically the guy that you just put the mic in front of and you record it. That's it, But with Mikey, I would have from my own personal experience, which is only little years compared to Mikey or something like that, but I find that my same sort of train of thought, my frame of mind with bass playing, especially going into studios or playing live, is trying to find that little sort of what I call the sweet spot between the drummer and everyone else, and it would have been very. I feel it would have been very hard for him to find that, but I reckon he found it early on. That's what I think anyway. And it doesn't. I think the production of the albums like 5150 and stuff like that doesn't sort of really show it. But I don't think that's that wasn't the intention. It was, what was it, 1985, 1986. There was a different time. People were listening to different things. You know what I mean? And I reckon that album came out because of whatever vibe was going on there. And then OU812 sort of sounds a lot different too. Again, and then every album kind of after that sounded different in the
every
production sort of thing. I just was happy to hear more bass after that.
Yeah, we got that on. We got more bass on that Chicken Foot album, didn't we? Because Andy Johns was involved in the production of that album too. So what did you think, Rod, about that album when that dropped, Chicken Foot? I mentioned it earlier in the show. So do you have an opinion on that you want to share with us?
I'd love to. I mean, what I did notice was that Mikey's sound was kind of getting a little more dirtier, if that kind of makes any sense. Like, that's the way I heard it. I think he was using these Schecters around that time too. I think he started using them around then. And then whenever I've seen Mikey do the live stuff, especially when they were doing the live stream stuff, his tone was massive, and that's the reason why I ended up getting this bass, because it was like, man, I could hear the tone. It's obviously it's always in the fingers of the player, absolutely, but hearing the tone out of these basses, I thought I need to get one of those basses, So and that's the reason why I have this guy here,
Yeah.
But I feel that his spot there was kind of like he wasn't just the bass player in that band. Like he was a bigger part in that band. You know what I mean? In Chicken Foot. And now the Circle. Whenever you see live footage with the Circle, you know what I mean. It's a very even sort of killer thing. You know what I mean. Everyone's got their moment in this thing, and it's kind of good. I love seeing that with Mikey, because him being one of my favorite bass players, I you'd want to see them more at the front, or you want to hear them more and stuff like that. So and he looks. I don't think I've ever seen him not look happy in any live video. Yeah. And the thing is that even from the early days, man, you can just tell he's someone that's just put 110% in from day dot. And I think that's what I mainly love about him, apart from his amazing playing and solid rock sort of stature in the band. But seeing that guy sort of go, looking at guys, you know how it is, Huss, when you kind of go, that guy's a mofo and can play anything, but look, on top of that, man, he's having fun and he's smiling and everything like that. It's a personality. I think his personality did come out a lot. It does. It comes out in his playing,
Yeah, I think it comes out in all the different bands he's played in, and it definitely comes out in his playing. And I'd also like to add that, people, I guess, compared to the flash of Eddie and Alex, and even the frontman flamboyance of Dave and Sammy, that, you know, it's quite often said that, you know, Mikey was great at just holding it down. But, you know, in a way, I sort of almost disagree with that. I think he did a lot more than just hold it down. I mean, if you listen to, you can hear some of the isolated bass tracks on songs like Mean Street, Unchained. You listen to the bass playing in Pound Cake or Judgment Day, or you listen to the bass playing in Push Comes to Shove. I mean, for me, that's way more than just holding it down. I mean, the lines that he plays, the choice of notes in his bass fills, all of that is super special to me, you know. Like even those A-Rod, you know, like in Mean Street, those bass runs that he does like towards the end of the phrase where the band stops.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's not just run-of-the-mill holding it down bass playing. That's really intelligent, great lines, you know, and quite often, and especially,
I think that's personality. I definitely think that's very much personality coming out in it.
But I just think that because, you know, it's so easy for people to get kind of sucked into the Alex and Eddie vortex, and then obviously you've got lead vocals which take up a lot of kind of your focus, that people wouldn't probably often listen to one of those songs and only listen to the bass part for the whole way through. But I promise, if anyone bothered to do that, you'll find that the bass playing is as incredible as anything else, you know.
Yeah.
There's another thing I
solid.
like about Mikey too, guys. Right from the word go, when he was with Van Halen, he was never a Bill Wyman. He wasn't just standing there by the bass. You know, he was an active. You know, they'd choreographed their parts. You know, and he was all over the stage as well as singing. And as Rod said, he's holding that. You know, with that right hand, he's holding that beat. Not an easy thing to do, guys, and we've got to give that a bit of credit because you know, that's a total package.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was meaning before as well. Like, you know, playing on big stages like that and having that sort of, you know, that personality being thrown around and you're having a good time, and then, you know, you have to remember what you're doing and try not make mistakes and stuff like that. And then, you know, and then keeping it solid and, you know, keeping it down with that kick drum, you know, it's massive. It's a whole package, and that guy's got it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, there's a lot of the bass player, all the bass players that I love, you know, growing up are guys like that. You know what I mean? The Billy Sheen as well. You know, he's another one of my favorite players.
Yeah.
You know, just the whole he can do all that and keep it down too. You know, it's my mouth stays open whenever I watch plays like that, because it's just they're one of a kind, you know. But I think Mikey really grabbed me because of that sort of solid. I remember when I was kind of getting into playing with bands and sessions and stuff like that, and I just always had in my head that if I can at least get as close to as steady as what he does, I'm okay. I'm pretty cool, and then, you know, I don't have to do anything else. You know, as long as I do that and work on that craft and have his right hand, you know what I mean. That's what I still do. I still play and kind of go, I've got to, you know, I want to be like that, you know. And I'll probably be like that for the rest of the time, you know, because they're the guys that just make you go, wow, in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like I see in the chat Keith Campbell saying, you know, anytime you see Mike playing, he's smiling his ass off. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. And that's why, you know, I think that's what draws you into any musician. It doesn't matter whether, you know, Mike's doing, you know, back in the Van Halen days or now with the Circle or Chickenfoot. You know, he's always smiling his ass off. He's having a good time. And it's that energy you see in someone playing live. It was the same with Eddie and Alex, you know. And Fruitcake Tony saying Mike breathes fun into every time you see him on stage. That's exactly the same thing. I think that we all feel we all feel the same energy from Mike that I think every member of Van Halen, new and old, always had, you know. And, you know, we were talking earlier too about his backing vocals. I mean, we've been talking about his bass playing just now, but, you know, that voice of his and in those harmonies vocally with Van Halen were as much a part of the sound as his bass playing, really, in my opinion, you know.
I think Jace has that voice too, which is really good. Jason Ward has that. I always wish I had that, but I'm so baritone.
Well, that's all right, brother. When you get up to play 5150 songs with us, we'll swap parts.
All right, we'll definitely do that. But I always wished I had that voice, man, because like you said, and it's tattooed in my head. It's that whole, you know, get up in Live Without a Net. That will wow me to the day that whole thing, being able to do that. It's like, wow, that guy's, he does really have it all, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, really, from my point of view, and I guess maybe because it was also imprinted when I was young from the Live Without a Net video, Michael Anthony's everything I'd ever want in a bass player in a band. Happy, smiling, laying it down, singing his ass off. What more could you ever want, you know?
Nothing.
Yeah.
He's perfect, in my opinion, as well, because and not only did he bring that sort of happy, fun vibe energy, his unique way, which I'm repeating myself a little bit, to actually just play the right thing all the time for the part of the song. Like you're talking about stuff off Judgment Day or Seventh Seal or Pound Cake, and then there was other things where I Can't Stop Loving You, and he's just playing something nice and perfect for the song. And his BVs, man, I've seen the interviews with Sammy talking about it. He goes, you know, if you like the singing, if you don't like the singing, it's Mikey, because he's making fun of Mikey. He's pulling the piss out of him. But basically, he's saying, you know, the voice of Van Halen is really Mikey, because he was the one doing the high end stuff. And really, I mean, that high vocal he does at the end of Judgment Day, always just every time just gives me the goosebumps. You know, like his BVs on a lot of the material, obviously, are sensational. But you talk about the perfect bass player, to me, isn't someone who stands out. And so I have the same feeling when it comes to drummers and guitar players. It's not about what they can do on the song. It's what they play for the song. And I think Mikey was perfect for everything he played. I can't pick a certain thing in any Van Halen song I don't like that Mikey does.
Neither can I.
I think I like everything he does. So,
I agree.
You know, I think he is like the perfect bass player for, you know, any bands. He would come in, have a time of his life playing with anyone, because that's just what he looks like. He would come in, smile on his face, just play. You know, I remember watching, I think you said you went to the Sydney Entertainment Centre show with Gary fronting them. And I remember just sitting there watching, and I was just amazed at how well Mikey just filled all the voids on stage. The bottom end sounded fantastic. His playing was outstanding. I was like, any question in my mind from people saying something about negative about Mikey or whatever, I was just like, this is just totally the opposite to what anyone's ever said, because he was just on the money, and his singing blew me away. Even I think he even sung "Somebody Get Me a Doctor." I
was going to say that from memory, he sang a song where he went right dead center, and that was
that's right. Yeah,
that was
but
crazy.
You know, even the songs that they did from the Sammy era with Gary singing, Gary's voice is amazing, but he's not a natural type singer to get up some of those notes like Sammy used to get. But it's kind of like with Mikey singing along, it works so beautifully. So
that gig in itself, I think, was kind of you know, I'm the kind of person that, you know, picks the positive out of any situation, and I'd always hear people sort of stoning that whole era of Van Halen, which was kind of bizarre because, all right, you know, that gig that I saw, it wasn't with Sammy, it wasn't with Roth, but we actually had a singer there that done a set list of both eras. Whereas in with Sammy, he wouldn't want to sing too many of Roth stuff, and vice versa. Roth wouldn't sing any, Hagar stuff. When we got to see Van Halen with Gary Cherone, they had a split. It was almost like a split set list, wasn't it? It was Roth and Hagar, and then a little bit of their own, a few songs from Van Halen 3.
Yeah.
But I got to see, Mikey, Alex, and Ed play, from Mean Street to, a whole collection of songs, which was, so that was, I walked away from that gig going, man, I never thought I'd see those songs live,
Exactly, my thoughts exactly. And when I watched that show, because it is on YouTube, not the whole gig, mind you, it's only about an hour of it. But when I do watch that, it takes me back to that absolute moment. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't think I've ever seen, say, Ed play this well. And I sincerely say this, out of all the footage I've ever seen, I still think that's probably the best I've ever seen Ed play. He's just playing so amazingly on that. And Mikey was playing amazing, and Alex was playing amazing. They were on fire. That there's a version of Mean Street it's unbelievable from that gig. It's online.
Okay. Cool.
Oh yeah, Mikey Mojo just mentioned that. Yeah.
By the way, big shout out to Mikey. Mikey's been awesome, and me and him have been going back and forth on the Instagram messages lots and lots. So yeah, shout out to you, Mikey.
Yeah, he always shares stuff online with us, which is great. He
says
when I'm at work or something, so I'm just liking everything because I shouldn't be on my phone at work. But thank you so much, mate.
Mikey's a sweetheart and a very generous guy with his time. He's always sending me stuff that he thinks I might be interested in. So thank you, brother. Actually, Andrew, was there a question from Fruitcake Tony towards me? Oh, yeah. Tony, you were asking, what did I call my Neil Daly guitar? I called her Annette, obviously after Live Without Annette, So.
Oh, very clever. And he's also asked a question about favourite bass players you've played with too.
That's tricky. I mean, it's like on any instrument, everyone has their own personality and everyone brings their own thing to it. I mean, Rod, who we have here, and I'm not saying this because he's on the show right now, because I think Rod knows I would feel this about him, but he's one of the greatest bass players and the most fun bass players that I've ever worked with, where I just know that the pocket and the tone and his musicality is absolutely unquestionable, which means that if I want to do my thing and be flamboyant, I never have to worry that what's going on behind me isn't laid down. But, Jason Vorher, of course, is a great bass player too. I've worked with some other great bass players. Chris Becker is one of them. And also a guy in America called Doug Shreve, who I played with Virgil Bernardi. He's an incredible bass player and plays bass almost more flamboyantly than people play guitar. It's sort of a bit amazing. But if I had to pick five off the top of my head, that'd be my five. But there's no way I could narrow it down to one because everyone's personality is so different and everyone has their own color and their own thing they bring to a show. But I'm very lucky because over my career, I've got to work with what I consider some of the greatest bass players in the world. So, you've heard Jason Vorher on the Melbourne Guitar Show thing on YouTube. You've heard Rod Bustos on the Racer X stuff that we do on YouTube. I mean, there's not many people that can play the Racer X stuff and do it with a tone and a pocket. And so the fact that also Rod is tours around with so many great Australian artists and is a session musician in his own right is testament to how versatile he is. So, yeah, I'm pretty lucky. But no, I don't think anyone can really nail down one favorite of anything. Like, it'd be like saying to someone, what's your favorite album? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, sorry, but there just isn't one, or like, who's your favorite guitarist? Well, I grew up with a whole bunch of different guys,
Dario's killer.
Dario's in it. Hey, Tanti. Yeah, Dario is one of my favorite bass players too. And unfortunately, I've only ever got to work with him on stage a little bit because, we're in Melbourne and he's in Sydney. But yeah, and Dario is also an absolute sweetheart of a man, as everybody knows. So, yeah, he's an incredible bass player too. Thank you, Tanti. Good to see you in the chat.
Thanks for joining us, Tanti.
I was just going to mention before with the Racer X stuff that we were doing.
Yeah.
And that's the bass. That's kind of one of my favorite basses too, the Kramer Striker that I used on that. And purely because it's just a passive bass. And it's got
and it works on stuff because
ceramic pickups on a really sort of.
Have you got it?
Yeah, but I'm going to show you because that's the one that I ended up doing this to.
Oh yeah, show everyone that, dude. Come on.
Oh,
come on.
I'm trying to get it in.
oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, the ceramic pickups. I mean, these basses came out in the early to mid 80s, I think, or and these
that was beautiful, bro.
Yeah,
beautiful.
I try to do it with the pinstripe, and I was telling Ossie before that get the heat gun out and then really sort of solidified the pinstripe on it, and it's really good now. It's actually not rocking, but these basses have amazing tone. Just the way that they're set up. I'm pretty sure these have like a plywood body, it's maple neck and that, but it's the whole passive and ceramic sort of pickups that make this bass like an amazing rock bass. Amazing rock bass, cool. And that's the tone that it's on the Racer X stuff. And yeah, I've got a few of them actually. And you can pick them up if you see them. You can pick them up for only a few $100s. And I've got around about 4 of them that I'm going to do this.
Yeah, cool.
Purely because I know, for me, Kramer, you're associated with Eddie and stuff like that, and that's why all the Kramers that I have, the reason I have them is for that reason, Van Halen. So what better way to sort of pay tribute than to do something like this?
That's
so
cool, brother.
There, and I'm going to put the black and do the bumblebee on and all that. So
that's awesome.
Oh.
There it is. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's awesome, brother. And so I saw something. Keith in the chat was saying question mark doing Racer X. Yes, Keith. If you haven't seen Rod playing bass, go to my YouTube channel and look at the Racer X videos, and you'll see Rod doing all the Racer X stuff, and he's killing it.
Oh, that band. We should really do that band again.
Yeah, we really should. I don't know why. I don't know what we're doing, not doing that. You know what could be fun, Rod, actually, is especially while we're still sort of slowly, equalizing and coming out of lockdown, coming to the surface like a submarine, we should even just do a couple of like what we did at Pony Music and pick another couple of Racer X songs and do them for YouTube,
Yes, I'll totally be into that. And I'll do them on that bass, I'd love to. And I'll have my other ones done by then too. So.
Cool. But you're right. I mean, man, we should have really done more gigs with that. I think we'll plan that for next year, early next year while the sun is still out. What do you reckon?
Yeah. It's never too late. It's never too late. But I think this Van Halen thing is going to start off something as well. Once we do this show, it'll kind of, I think it'll kick us in the butt and kind of go, let's do more of these gigs as well, because it'll be where we get to have pure fun. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, Rod, I've got a project that I need to speak to you a bit more privately about that I can't really share on this forum right now. It's a bit premature, but Rod, we need to speak in the next couple of days because I got something I want to run by you.
All right, bring it on.
It'll be it'll be something completely separate to all this stuff, but no less fun.
Oh, mate. Hey, before it all ends, I just wanted to show this other bass that I had.
Yeah,
please do. Please do.
Which is the Mike Anthony, but the 5-string.
Oh, cool, man. Look at that.
Which is gorgeous. I mean, my main bass is a 5-string. So the getting the other one. I mean, I thought I had to get these in a 5 as well, which is the same thing as the other one.
Oh,
I've got to say, I love that it's wood and not painted like a hard color. You know.
No, it's. I think it's walnut. It might be
is
walnut.
it a set neck?
No, it's a bolt-on.
Oh, it's okay, cool.
Yeah. This thing has just as much growl as the 4-string. They're just amazing basses. His custom basses are my favorite basses at the moment.
Yeah, they're really beautiful. I mean, I'm sure they play great as well, but they just look gorgeous. Yeah. You know what I like about them? They're gorgeous looking, but in a way that's kind of understated and not just yelling me, me, me. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And and you can tell they're made for guys that have a heavy right hand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's just the way the pickups are and stuff.
You consider that you had a pretty heavy right hand?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. I kind of I you know, it's trying to build that little guy there.
Oh wow.
Building that guy. You know, which comes from most people playing.
I can't work out if that's cool or gross.
It's a bit of both, I think.
Yeah. What was there's something I was just going to say to you right now, and I've forgotten it already. Oh yeah. There's a great expression that I heard that I think was originally attributed guitarists, but actually I think you could equally put it to bass players and even maybe some other instruments, which is the left hand is what you know as a musician. The right hand is how you feel.
Absolutely.
And I love that because it's the right hand that plucks the string. So that's where the emotion is. The left hand is what you know intellectually about music, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot with practicing, like even, you know, when we're warming up for shows and stuff like that as well. You know, I find myself sort of playing, you know, a kind of muted thing. But as long as I'm playing with my right hand, sort of getting, you can play it sort of percussively and just have this thing kind of going off and sort of just going, you know, and that's the way I kind of build that strength to play, you know, with that right hand like that. You could be doing nothing. You could be doing nothing with the left hand, and then the right hand could be doing like just anything. You know what I mean? And I think that's how I focus on my sort of warming up and practice. Because all the feels in that part, you know what I mean? I think.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right, brother. Totally agree.
Would you agree that Michael Anthony, a lot of his emotion and that comes from his right hand, the way he plays?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I'll tell you another thing I really respect about Michael Anthony is that he mixes up playing with the right hand with his fingers and with a pick. Because most players will actually be only one or the other. Yeah. I think the fact that he chooses the right articulation for the song just shows what a great musician he is, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's actually knowing when to use it, you know? I think that's definitely the thing right there. And, I think he's kind of like his finger playing though is one of those things that you kind of sometimes I would hear I wonder if some of the riffs that they do together, him and Ed. There's one that I'm trying to remember now, and I kind of wonder whether they're easier to do with a pick or with fingers on a bass. Yeah. And but I kind of there's some of them that I haven't been able to sort of decipher yet. So I'm wondering if it's easier for him. It's one question I'd love to ask him. Actually.
Well, there you go.
Like for the special. Like, I think the one I was thinking of was the Without You from Van Halen 3.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think that was one I was kind of thinking. I wonder if he did play that with pick or with fingers.
I'll have to have a closer listen to that, brother. I don't know. I mean, I know that I managed to find a lot of isolated tracks for the Van Halen 1 record, so it's very clear when you solo his bass which songs he was playing a pick and which songs he was playing fingers. But even then in 1978, the fact that it was even a choice to like completely swap his right hand playing style for the song, I think that's genius. That's cool. You know? Yeah, very, very cool.
That's song playing. I love to call that just song playing. Listening to the song and then sort of seeing what's perfect for it, you know.
What do you think about? I remember reading an article, and I forget the bass player, so forgive me. But he was saying that the reason why he uses a pick is because he needs to play ahead of the beat, and when he reverts back to his fingers, it's because he wants to play behind the beat. So does that make any kind of sense? Because, yeah.
Well, maybe Rod's better to answer that, but I could just simply say that I can imagine that because the pick is going to have a more aggressive transient and attack to the note, it might, even if you're not playing the note in a different place to the kick drum, it'll seem like it's forward because your transient is stronger. Whereas when you're playing with your fingers, you've got a muted transient, so it kind of feels like the note develops behind the beat. But the truth is, it might actually be placed in the exact same spot, but your transient's different. So would that make sense, Rod? Would you agree with that?
I think it would. I've never thought of it like that, because I think for me, whenever I've played sort of bass, either fingers or pick, was because of the flavor of the song or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But it kind of but I think in theory it does make sense. In that, you know, it's more. There's more attack. There's more definition, you know, from a pick.
Definitely more attack and transient from a pick. So yeah, I can see that it might give the impression of the pocket being a bit more forward, even if you're playing it in the same spot. Yeah.
But I've never thought of that until now.
There you go.
It's interesting because a lot of the time, the thing I love about bass is you can play aggressively on a bass with a pick, or you can play aggressively on a bass with your fingers. But there's bass players that, like Michael Anthony, that I can think of that use both as well. There's not many, though. A lot of them like to just use a pick or just their finger, and no, they don't like swapping over.
Yeah.
I
don't know bass players that swap around on one album either. So it'd be interesting to know who else does that. But the fact that Michael Anthony does it is pretty cool, actually.
The only person I can really think of off the top of my head very quickly would be John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. He used to play with his fingers a lot, but he played with a pick as well, like Black Dog is playing. It's certain things need that aggression with the, you know. But then you got players like Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses that just plays with a pick all the time.
All the time.
That's the sound. That's the sound, and it works.
I think there's a good combo player like Mikey would be, for me, would be like Mike Vaccaro.
Oh yeah,
from Toto. Definitely like that. You know, he was slick as on fingers, and then he'd just go onto a pick, depending on the song, and it'll sound just as slick. You know, and
that's a really good call, Rod. I totally agree with you that Mike Vaccaro would have swapped it around. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear in some of their tunes, some of the real sort of funky tunes too. You know, with playing with Jeff, and Mikey's playing. You know, Mike Vaccaro's playing on the pick, and it sounds just as incredible as him playing it on fingers. You know.
Wow, that's
You reckon he's another one of those rare guys out there that was around. You know, like Mikey, like Anthony. You know.
Yeah.
They're pretty much my two favorite bass players. Mike Vaccaro. Yeah.
So 2 mics.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Alongside with Billy Sheehan and with
Billy
Sheehan and Doug Wimbish.
Billy's influence on you, right, as well?
Yeah, massive. I mean, the whole Edelman Smile album's kind of, they've done one of those sort of 5150s to me, you know. But then, equally with Billy Sheehan, I had the sort of same love for, like, at the time as well with Doug Wimbish. You know, he's another player, you know, that's
Doug Wimbish,
massive personality players that just, you know, those guys that do. I think the one thing that these guys have in common, I think, and I don't know if you could sort of relate to this, Hossie, but they're the guys that play stuff, and you hear them playing this stuff either on vinyl, on records, or live, especially live. They're the guys that play things that, you know, for example, me as a player sort of growing up, I'd wish, you know, there are things sometimes that I'd want to play, and then I'll shy away from it. I'll play it too safe sometimes. But these guys have this ability to just sort of say, you know, F you to the whole thing and just play whatever is coming out. And the way that I like to see it is it's just being fearless playing, you know what I mean? And so, that's why guys like, you know, Mike Anthony, Mike Vaccaro, Billy Sheehan, Doug Wimbish for me were guys that, you know, they've done things that you kind of go, yeah, you know, I'd love to do that, but you know, sometimes I'll just want to play it safe, you know. But these guys just do it, you know. So that's why I always love those kinds of plays.
Yep. Yep. And I got to agree with you, just to go off like left on a tiny little tangent. That's not really specifically Van Halen related. That Eat 'Em and Smile album was, I thought was awesome too. And what I loved about it is it really did have its own personality, you know.
Yeah. That was like, did those albums come out the same year?
What, 5150 and Eat 'Em and Smile?
Yeah.
Oh man, I could check it. I don't. If it wasn't the same year, it wasn't very far apart. Like they were. I have a funny feeling Eat 'Em and Smile might have came out in '86 and 5150 came out in '85.
Correct.
Right. Is that right, Andrew? Yeah. But someone I'm sure can double check that on Wiki or whatever. But certainly not far apart from each other. And what a time in music, you know. I mean, imagine having. I wish that I was my age now, where instead of like 14, you know, when 5150 came out and Eat 'Em and Smile came out, like, you know, not long after. I mean, wow. I remember
think it was amazing that, you know, I think in that small amount of years, you know, 2 or 3 years, there was like Eat 'Em and Smile, there was 5150, and then there was Whitesnake 87. For me, like the 3 big albums of that whole sort of mid 80s.
Another huge album,
Massive.
you know, that Coverdale album, 87, huge album here in New Zealand. It was just phenomenal. And then you had Def Leppard's Hysteria come out around the same time too, you know, just phenomenal.
Yeah. You know, that's exactly right. I mean, it was such a golden time. I've still got all my vinyl from around that era. And if you just, and because I'm OCD, I've got all my vinyl chronologically from the 60s to now. And if I just go into that period of the 80s, which is, you know, around 85, 86, 84, 87, like that middle of the 80s, man, it's just hit album after hit album after hit. I mean, it is unbelievable. And I just think that was just the golden age of rock and roll, really was. I feel like late 70s rock and roll was a bit more jammy and carefree and a bit more sort of flamboyant maybe. But that mid 80s rock and roll was where it all kind of coalesced and became like produced and tough, you know. It was a really fun time.
Yeah, they were doing things that you could only imagine, weren't they? I think that's the way
we're going to have to... everything I feel like there's always this kind of renaissance 20 years later. Like if you think about how, you know, there was this throwback to the 70s, which really happened in the 90s, and it happened in rock and roll, but it also happened in funk with like Jamiroquai and stuff. And then you had this almost Beatles-esque sort of throwback to melody in the 80s, which was 20 years away from the 60s. So you kind of, and I think it's just because teenagers that were influenced by a particular style are now in their middle age, and they're now controlling things like record companies and radio stations, and they can influence. And I feel like that's why there's this sort of weird, almost a ripple effect 20 years later where you get this little thing. And I think it's time that we brought 80s guitar rock back.
Yeah.
Why not?
Absolutely agree.
You know, so, yeah. Hey, Rod, hey, my brother.
Head off to my gig now.
Good on you, bro. Well, for anyone in Melbourne, if you're twiddling your thumbs this evening, please do go along to Mimo in St Kilda to see the most incredible Prince tribute show you'll ever see in your life.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. It's been our pleasure, Rod. Yeah. It's been our pleasure. Please come back.
I'll do some of this.
Awesome, bro.
I'm thinking like in the middle of Purple Rain or something like that, but no.
Yeah. Take that bass and finger tap in Purple Rain. Exactly.
I will. No, thank you so much, guys. It's been absolute fun, and you long live King Edward, and more props to Mike Anthony.
Yeah.
You know, the perfect bass player, I think.
Rod, one question before you go, mate. What's your favorite go-to Michael Anthony song?
Oh yeah, good question.
Favorite go-to mic? Oh man, that's another hard one, isn't it?
Just off the top of your head.
I love playing. If I look at it like in terms of what I love playing along to, will be things like Summer Nights from 5150 is one of my favorites. But then again, there's ones like which one was it from Balance? I actually love when I sit down and have a bit of a practice. I love playing along to Big Fat Money.
Oh, yeah.
That song, like, I think I can. It's one of those songs that you can really hear the energy coming out of Mikey there. So yeah, I think those ones are the kind of ones that then they've got Pound Cake, Pleasure Dome.
Yeah.
I absolutely love his playing in Pleasure Dome.
Yeah, that's great. Also love his playing in Not Enough from Balance. I love his bass playing in that too.
Yeah, I mean, they're the kind of, you know what, I think 5150 and Balance are the two albums that I really love having a play to in the studio, you know, having a bit of a practice. And then I'll just let it play and I just play along with it. But yeah, I think if I was to point out a favorite, I think Summer Nights 5150.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on and showing us all your wonderful basses. That was amazing.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was fun. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely.
Guaranteed.
Right.
Guaranteed. We're going to do a special on the bass solo from Live Without a Net. So Brad's got you guys booked in. So we'll get a date. We'll get a date for that. And
we'll start it all.
We
can get like a Jack Daniels bass by then.
Well, that's your mission, brother. You'll get it.
You know what?
Sure.
I'll take that mission. Let's do it.
Well, actually,
Thanks,
Rod,
guys.
I think I might know someone that could build you a Jack Daniels bass if you ever want one. We'll talk about that.
All right, let's do that. Let's definitely get into
that. Have a great day, guys. Great.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.
See you, brother.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
See you in the corner.
Yeah, see you in the corner.
Oh, yeah, I'll see you then.
Awesome.
Hoss,
yeah.
Just before we get carried away and just continue with the show, thank you very much, brother, for bringing on these two awesome bass players that you've got the pleasure clearly and obviously to play with. These guys are fantastic. The fact that they want to jump on and share their experiences and their and their opinions with us is humbling for us and for anybody watching our show. It's a pleasure. Thank you, brother.
It's obviously a pleasure to be able to bring them on, and I'm very fortunate to be able to work with such incredible bass players and musicians, but also lovely guys that I can call friends. So it's definitely a privileged position to be in, and no matter what happens in the music industry, and obviously with COVID, the music industry around the world has been pretty rough. But when you get to make a living playing with wonderful people that you can call friends and that are great musicians, then it's never so bad,
Isn't it cool to see them geek out on their bass guitars too?
Oh, I love it.
Like us as guitar players, isn't it cool?
Because they geek out on their stuff as much as we do on ours, but we just don't often see it. But so to have both Jason and Rod like showing off all their stuff the way we show off guitars and amps is totally awesome. So yeah.
And they got some sexy ass basses. Wow.
Oh man, those basses are just gorgeous. Yeah. No,
that's also playing like that P bass that Jace had, and those Mikey basses, those signature ones that
wow.
Oh man.
I've got to say, quite honestly, that those Michael Anthony signature basses are some of the best looking basses I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a question for you that I wanted to ask, but I didn't get a chance to. But I'm going to ask it to you. I'm going to ask you it now. So when you're playing with these guys and they're playing with these different basses, you've got a P bass and you've got a Michael Anthony bass. Can you hear the differences yourself? Is it obvious to you when you're playing? Okay.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can hear the difference, and what's wonderful is because they've both got such great ears, I know that they're always choosing the bass for whatever is going to sound right for that song.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes, of course, it's a decision based on if they're going to pick up a 5-string because they need those extra low notes. So that kind of informs the decision. But really, most of the time, they're playing the bass that is going to just sound right. And it's, I can totally hear the difference. It's quite amazing how big a difference it is, even on stage at loud volume. But yeah, it's very cool.
So when you've got your producer's hat on, and you're playing in a live gig, or you're preparing for a live gig, considering some of the acts that you've played with, have you ever recommended to a bass player that they should play a certain style of bass to suit the song? Is that something that you've that you've done from that perspective?
Not live on stage. No, I feel like, especially for live, it becomes more for instrumentals. It doesn't have to be just bass, could be anything. Could be keyboards or drums even, but they should be playing the instrument that makes them play the best live. So in other words, whatever makes them the most comfortable and the most, we're talking about Mikey before, how he's always smiling and walking around the stage and stuff. Now, if there's one particular bass that he wants to play that makes him more in that zone, that's the bass I would want anyone to play, or, the same on any other different instrument. In the studio definitely is more of a different thing, because quite often when you're recording, the musician's sitting down, and it really is more about what is the tone that's going to suit the mix of the song and the production the best. So I think in the studio, but also it probably almost isn't a matter of, if I'm producing something, anyone I would ask to play, I mean, they would bring a selection of different instruments anyway, because they also want to hear whatever the best sound is for that song. So if that becomes kind of a bit more intuitive, but live, no. I don't think it makes enough of a difference live for me to be fussy about it. And truthfully, I would just want someone to play the instrument that makes them feel the best on stage.
Isn't it interesting, we're talking about production and things like that, Hoss and Andrew, that both of the guys we had on today, both bass players, talking about like when they're hearing, like in Van Halen with Mikey's playing, and they always go to like that balance era. Have you noticed that? They always go to that balance with sound. And I've seen Mikey in an interview actually talk about that was his favorite sort of era of recording, because it's like the bass was up front, and with carnal knowledge and balance, it was wrapped. And it's funny how it's, without even saying that, they automatically go to that, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's really interesting. But I also think it's interesting how different people hear, I guess maybe what they're focusing on, they hear it a bit different. Like, for example, I've heard people say before the bass is more pronounced on the balance record. I actually personally don't hear that. If you AB that even quickly with Fair Warning or Carnal Knowledge, I feel like it's kind of in the same zone, actually. But I think that a lot of people generally perceive the production and the mix on Balance as one of their favorite records. I'd agree with that. It definitely, in terms of the more modern era, I think it's an incredibly well-produced record. But specifically about the bass, I actually don't hear it as much louder than the other records.
Oh, okay, I think it was just more the where it's situated in the mix with the drums. I think
I guess so, yeah.
Where Mikey was saying that he was really happy with those. But,
Mikey himself was saying he liked where his bass was sitting in that mix. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was in an interview, and he was talking about, he was being asked about that, and he really enjoyed that period of recording because, his bass was up front, and he liked that the producers were, they wanted that stuff up front. The engineers were pushing it. The producers wanted it. It was a big part of the sound. And I guess that, when they started to really focus on, in my opinion, like Alex really wanted that bigger carnal knowledge sort of sound, the bass had to sort of match that. That was a given. Have a dry sort of, early 70s sort of bass sound with that big drum sound that they went for. So, yeah, it's just unbelievable. Anyway, there's just how they brought that up in the conversation, and it's been great to actually hear. I mean, we're guitar players and we're talking about Michael Anthony, but it was great to get bass players in to actually discuss, what they see with Michael Anthony as being why he's so amazing on the bass.
Yep, agreed on all those counts. And Mikey there is saying in the chat, on the earlier VH records, Michael Anthony's sound was maybe a bit thinner. I sort of agree with that, but I think that, I mean, it's very clear to me because it happened across so many different records that it must have been a very deliberate decision. And I think, especially because a lot of the bass lines were busier compared to maybe if you even compared it to other rock and roll in the same era, like Kiss we were talking about before or whatever, those bass lines are much, much less busy in terms of how fast the notes are moving. And they lend themselves to more sub frequencies. I think that because, I mean, a lot of those bass lines that Mikey was playing with Alex, they're almost like what we were talking about before, like Jaco Pastorius kind of jazzy style bass lines. And I feel like that the best way to have the music have impact in a mix is to have the bass not be super subby, like maybe some of the disco stuff in the same era, but then also maybe some of that rock and roll like Kiss and whatever. I think the tonal quality of an instrument definitely is dictated by how it's played, you know. And I know that from mixing stuff in the studio as well, where sometimes you just you can't approach the instrument like a one size fits all in terms of how you EQ it, you know, because it depends on how fast the notes are moving. You know, almost like Alex's kick drum, as everyone knows too, is not a very sub-frequency kick drum. I mean, if you compare it to like Lars in Metallica or something like that, I mean, it is chalk and cheese. Alex's kick to me always, when I say this though, this is not a judgment. I actually love the way Alex's kick sound. And I love that over so many records, they committed to that was part of his sound as much as his snare drum and everything else. It's a kick drum that's not super sub-frequency. And so maybe part of the reason that Mikey's bass sound also wasn't very bottom heavy and sub-frequency is because then it would have overtaken Alex's kick drum, because then the frequencies would overshadow it. So I think that these were all deliberate decisions. And but yeah, I agree with Mikey Mojo in the chat that the bass sounds thinner, but like we were talking about before, not in a bad way. It's just subjective. It's almost a jazzier P bass kind of tone, you know?
Yeah, I think and also in fitting with the drum sound, the bass worked really well in those earlier records. But as the drum sound got bigger, they obviously pushed the bass sound bigger. For Carnal Knowledge, it's a lot bigger all around, the bigger sounding album. One of my favorite bass and drum sounds, like when you put the combination together, was Humans Being. I love the way the bass and the drums sound together on that song. It's just phenomenal.
I agree with that. That song sounds great. Yep.
The production on that is just unbelievable. The way they managed to get that drum and bass working together, that's the key element for me in any recording, whether it's Van Halen or modern bands. Like I love a band called Rival Sons, and I love the way that their bass and their drum sound works so well together, and it just gives a flat spectrum. Even when there's no guitars playing, it's just full. It's just unbelievable.
And we've said it before, haven't we? You know, that Human Beings and, you know, those last songs that they were doing with Sammy, they were sounding so great, you know. You know, the album Balance, some of the, you know, the songwriting had gone up to another level, and they were just about, you know, onto another dimension, and it just like ended. Sad.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I've got to
agree with this comment. Sorry, brother. I've got to agree. If only Andy Johns had engineered OU812, I've got to agree with that. Got to agree with that.
Yeah.
Sorry, brother.
Well, I've got to say, it's been really good to, you know, we talk a lot about Ed on this show, like most Van Halen shows do, but it's great to acknowledge the brilliance and amazing musicianship of Michael Anthony. So, you know,
good.
Thanks for indulging us, guys, with and Hoss bringing on those bass players, your sidemen, the guys that keep you on stage alive. You know,
You know, I don't even think of the other members of the band as sidemen really, but I know what you mean, like affectionately, because I think for the same reason that we talk about that each member of Van Halen was an equal part, and without them it doesn't quite work. You know, everything becomes sort of lopsided. It's like any great endeavor is the sum of all its parts working in harmony together, and you know, having me being fortunate enough to work with, you know, amazing bass players and great drummers and great singers as well is it's all part of it. One doesn't work without the other. So
I will say I call them sidemen, not backline. I wanted to make sure.
yeah.
They're not your backline guys. They're sidemen. So I call it like wingmen. You know, Top Gun.
That's true.
Are you the Iceman or you know, you Maverick?
No. They are my wingmen in exactly the same way that I'm their wingman, you know. So yeah.
Awesome.
It's awesome. So yeah, I mean, it's high time that some love was given to Michael Anthony. Such an incredible contribution to rock and roll over the last, you know, 3 decades, and you know, a great bass playing, incredible backing vocals, a great vibe on stage, and as much a part of the, you know, the cartoon caricatures that Van Halen are as anybody else.
Awesome. Yeah. Gerry says that he's a sideman, so he's happy with that label.
Jerry, I say it respectfully.
Yeah.
Meaning side by side, you know, like a front, like an army front.
Yeah. Because we want Gerry to come back, so he means it respectfully. Hey guys, we're going to be here tomorrow with the Rock Professor. We're going to be ranking the tracks on a Yardbirds album, 5 live Yardbirds. We'll have a guest with us doing that as well. So lock and load if you haven't already, and be part of the British Electric Blues TV show that we do. We'll be back in a fortnight, guys, won't we, with the 5150 show.
Indeed.
We're going to get together and we're going to pick a topic. I'll put a topic once we decide what we're going to do on the community page. But if you haven't followed Hoss, if you haven't followed Brad on their Instagram accounts, they'll release what we're going to be talking about on their stories. So you guys have to be up with the play if you want to know what we're doing here on the 5150 show. And we certainly look forward to it. We've got some good shows coming up. Hoss and Brad are going to be on location for us. We really look forward to that. We've been drooling about this show. Oh my, for what, months now? For months.
Well, I promise, and it might even be in time for the very next show in a fortnight, but I have some very special teasers coming up as I'm preparing for the tribute to Eddie Van Halen. So yeah, there'll be surprises that we'll unveil.
It's been a pleasure, Hoss, as usual. You know, we are absolutely spoilt and we don't take it lightly, your contribution to the show, being part of what we do here. Thank you. It's again, I'm sitting here sometimes just going, like everybody else in the chat, I just want to shut up and listen, believe it or not. Believe it or not. But having these bass players on, I'm going to pass it on to Brad, and we're going to give you the last word. And if you want to go through and say goodbye to everybody, but we just want to say thanks again for having these bass players on. Watching them go gooey over their instruments was just made me feel like super cool.
It's really refreshing to see some people on different instruments be just as gushing as we are on guitar. I love it. I love it.
If you can do me a favor, if you can buy them a Coke, a beer, or a Scotch, or a bourbon on behalf of the 5150 show, send the bill to Brad. He'll pay for it, okay?
Yeah.
Andrew, I'm already working hard enough. I'm not getting paid for that. I'm not paying for people's drinks either.
Brilliant. Love it.
Look, guys, I again, I'm going to sort of mirror what Andrew said. I sat here just in awe a lot of the time. it's just remarkable. I soaking up all the energy from both bass players was awesome. So thanks, Hoss, for organising that, and look forward to more shows. I'm looking forward to more, fair warning takeovers of the 5150 show. It's great. I like that sort of saying, the fair warning takeover of the 5150 show. It's great.
Well, I think that at some point down the track, your idea of doing a fair warning takeover for Live Without a Net would be really fun.
Yeah, and I definitely would. Can't wait for that to happen. And look, guys, I kind of feel a bit in awe sometimes of being in your presence as well. So thank you guys for sharing. Today was really, really magical, and had a fun show today. And thank you guys, and Hoss, Andrew, love you guys, and
love
everyone
you guys.
in the chat. Thank you guys. I'll hand it over to Hoss. He can say goodbye to everyone in the chat, and thank you. Don't forget, subscribe and give us a thumbs up, and share us on your socials as well. Help us grow. Help us. We're doing this organically. We're doing it for the love, so share a bit of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've actually had a bunch of people join in the chat just recently. We got Neil Daly. Neil, obviously, for anyone that doesn't know, has built my 5150 guitar, which is incredible. I don't have it behind me to pull out and show, but I have something special coming up, so we can. I'll reveal that at a later date. So good to see Neil. Tanti, thanks for lurking in the background and saying hello. Nina Ferro, the incredible Nina Ferro, who will be singing at the Corner Hotel, doing some of the Sammy Hagar stuff, which will be so much fun. Who else have we had joining? Like Symmetry. I think everyone else we pretty much have said hello to at the start of the show. I'm just looking. Oh, we got Caleb from Nerd Halen in the chat. Thanks, Caleb, for joining in. We got Tubin one minute work discussion. Well, we could probably do that another time, but that's a whole other show. Thanks everyone for joining in. Oh, there is one other thing I would like to say. For anyone that knows about Mad Anthony's chili sauces, I'm actually a very, very big fan generally of chili sauces, and I have a whole collection in my kitchen. The sad thing for me is I would be very, very interested in trying these Mad Anthony chili sauces, but on the Mad Anthony's Cafe website, which, by the way, for anyone that is less familiar with Michael Anthony, he has his own website called madanthonycafe.com, which has all the stuff about his hot rods and his chili sauces and his music and all sorts of stuff. But unfortunately, they don't on his website. There's no option to choose for delivery to Australia for the chili sauces. So if anyone in the chat wants to DM me, if they know a way that I can order some out to Australia, I will totally do that, because I think I need to try out Michael Anthony's chili.
I'll second that too, Simon. I want to try it too.
So what was that, Brad?
I'll second that. I want to know how to get them to Australia because I want to try them as well.
Oh, you're a chili guy? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we'll get together soon, Hoss, and we'll have some chili. We'll get together and do a chili.
Brilliant. Actually, and for anyone that also might be fans of spicy hot chili sauces and want to try something different that is also from a musician, Dexter Gordon's chili sauces are really good. He's the singer of The Offspring, and his chili is killer. It's really, really good, very flavorful. But I want to try Mad Anthony's. So if anyone knows how we can get it to Australia, Brad and I will do a show where we sample all the different chilies. Oh yeah, there you go. There's my chili sauces sitting up there. Well, there's some of them. The rest are in the cupboard, but there's some that are sitting up on the bench. Thanks, Andrew, for throwing that up. But yeah, so send me a message on Facebook or Insta or something if you know how I can get Michael Anthony's chili, because and then Brad and I will do a tasting show. That will be very funny. And Andrew, you can do a tasting show with us too. We just obviously won't be in the same room, you know.
Oh well, I'm a little bit like you guys too. So I'm a bit of a Tabasco and a pepper sauce fan too. So there's a local guy that makes a product, and it's called Kai Tire Fire, and it's made up in Kai Tire. Yes, yeah. So yeah.
Let's speak about this after the show, because Andrew, if you can send me some links to that, I'd be very happy to try it. I think we've just found a spin-off YouTube show.
I tell you what, you guys send me your addresses, I'll send you a bottle for Christmas, because I love you guys.
Beautiful. Well, unless you guys want to weigh in anything else, I think that's all I've got.
That's all I got too, guys, and thanks everyone.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for watching us, everyone. If you want to share any of your social media accounts with us, to scroll on the bottom there or anything like that, get in touch with Hoss, get in touch with Brad or myself. We're happy to help you guys out. It's the least we can do. And all beer tabs and drink tabs will be paid for by Brad, so that's no problem.
Right. Well, big love to Michael Anthony. If you happen to ever be watching this, we love you and have loved you since we were teenagers. Yeah, brother. Thank you for the music.
Thank you.
Peace.
Yeah.